Thanks for being here. Let me start by saying this. There has never been a better time to be at TCU. And I mean, whether you're a student, an employee, a coach, but especially a student athlete, I just am so excited about the competitive trajectory of our programs. I think we've got the right coaches in place. I like our place in the new Big 12 conference across the board. And I think we're making the right investments at the right time. Obviously, for those of you who have been to practice, you've seen the Performance Center projects coming along. And boy, the timing of that is just perfect to have those $52 million projects completed a year from now and ready for the class of 2025 is a big deal for all of our programs, probably especially football, but every single student athlete will benefit from that. We're going to talk a little bit about revenue sharing. You've seen our commitment to do that at the max level. I think that investment is critical for us at TCU, and so really pleased that we were able to come together and announce that. And I say this all in the context or the background that the university is going through a strategic planning process. And so as we look forward, at the next 5, 10 years and beyond, athletics is going to be a big part of that. And that's kind of our secret sauce here. But it's well understood across campus and the community and the leadership how important athletics is to this school and to this community. And so it's fun. It's exciting to be a part of that. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of things going on right now, but it's exciting to think about that. In addition, the master plan, right? There's also a facilities master plan. And so we know there's other needs from a physical plant standpoint. And so as you look out over the next 5, 10 years, that'll become a big focus after the building I just mentioned is complete. So obviously this does not come without some challenges. The thing that we're spending our time on now is the House case settlement, as you're all familiar with. A lot of issues there. I would tell you that I like our plan. We're modeling a number of scenarios. There are for every question you have answered, there are 4 more that pop up. And so most of those will not be decided by me or by TCU, but by a court of law and a judge or judges. And so a lot of that is to be patient, but there's implications as far as roster sizes and scholarships. And so we're looking through all that, what that means. They're all connected. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is it's not just revenue sharing and scholarships. They're all connected, and I'm happy to talk about that. But, for us, the plan is not to add new scholarships. It's potentially reallocating that. We're going to be focused primarily on putting that $21 million of rev share in the hands of the players, in the hands of the student athletes. That's going to be our commitment. That's a space we feel like we competitive. We understand that does not guarantee championships. It does not guarantee wins, but it's a way in which we think we can be competitive across the board here with the programs that are going to share in that. We don't know what that looks like yet. I think it's probably reasonable to assume that the sports that generate revenue are going to participate in that. So happy to talk about that as well. But I'll finish with this and then happy to take questions. But it's been a huge week for TCU football considering we haven't played a game yet. Yesterday, of course, we announced the naming of the Harrison Family Football Performance Center. A big deal. Mike and Brenda Harrison from Midland, made the lead gift to build out the new Performance Center, which will be the home for our TCU football team for years. I say the home because they spent a lot of time there. If you ask our strength and conditioning program, big deal. Mike and Brenda, for those of you who have been to the administration building, named the Harrison, really been supportive of athletics for a long time now. So fun to have their name forever associated with such a big part of our athletics department. And then last, but certainly not least, and Sonny made mention of it, is the gift commitment from the Dykes family, Kate and Sonny, to honor Jamal Powell and Shirley Ennis. I mean, it's hard to put into words how significant that is to the university, to those families, to our programs, to me personally. It's pretty unusual when you sit down with Kate and Sonny, or when you sit down with anyone, and they're coming to you with this, and that says a lot about who they are as people, as families, and just couldn't be more excited to have them as part of our family. And so really excited. It's fitting that we're here in the 4-7s room, of course, which Hunter Ennis is a founder of, to make a gift in honor of Shirley, his late wife. She'd be pretty excited about that. And then Jamal Powell has had a significant impact on so many people here. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and talked about him since his passing. And I've got great confidence that if he were still alive today, he'd be on staff. And I think Sonny feels that too. And so excited for both of those, for that commitment and for both to see those names more prominently around this university. So with that, I'll stop and happy to answer any questions you all have.
With the revenue sharing, I know you said it won't be your decision ultimately, but is there an ideal plan or ideal scenario in your head that you have in mind right now?
Well, we're working through a few, and I think let me back up to say that the settlement hasn't even been finalized yet. So we have a pretty good idea what it'll look like, but there could be changes, there could be curveballs, and I would tell you that I think what's fair is that the revenue should be commensurate with the programs that generate the revenue, and so here we have 6 that generate revenue. There are schools that have more if you add softball or ice hockey. And so, we think that program probably makes the most sense. Let's be honest about why we're here. It's been a football and men's basketball issue. I'm not advocating that they get all the money. I don't think that's fair. But I do think it should be commensurate with what the programs bring in.
You mentioned roster sizes and all these other issues. Is there a finish line to this, like in the next 6 to 8 months? So say in July of 25, you guys will have a firm idea of what the model's going to look like, and everybody knows kind of what the parameters are.
Great question. I hope. Because it's even more complex than that. If you take the football recruiting calendar for a moment, they need to know well in advance before July 25 what this is going to look like. They need to know like November, because we've got kids, we're already talking with kids about, they want to know, how they're going to participate in there, what the scholarships are going to be, not so much in football. We know that the rosters will go down, but that's one challenge that football's got is right now we have about 130 guys running around up there. Next year, 105. There are no exceptions to that. So we're going to be down 25 guys. What does that look like? How you run your program. That's going to be a question for our football coaches. But what does spring ball look like? What does fall camp look like? And so some of that's it's hard to live in that uncertainty. But right now we have a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I would just take kind of extension of your question is not so much football, but think about some of our other sports. Think baseball going from 44 to 34. 11.7 scholarships. How do you get more scholarships into baseball without adding scholarships? Are you reallocating them from other sports, right? Those are tough decisions that we here are contemplating in every place, right? Because, the revenue sharing, I said this earlier, that's connected. The revenue sharing, any new scholarships you add are basically credited from that 21 million. So in essence, your revenue share goes down. So if we said here, it's important for us, talk about TCU football for a moment, to be at the top of the rev share so that no other school, no other football program can say they're investing more in their student athletes than we are. That's important to you, and I'm telling you that's important. Well, then we want to keep that number as high as possible, and adding new scholarships chips away at that. So our commitment now, our plan is to keep to not add scholarships and to keep that revenue share, to keep those numbers as high as possible.
So we don't, I'm sorry, Melissa.
Say if you are reallocating, not adding, does that mean that potentially sports could be eliminated? You've added several new sports in the last several years. We can see, not to use triathlon as an example, it's a new sport. Could something like that have to collapse in order to add to baseball?
No, great question, Melissa. And I think that's the fear of all this is that, we didn't have 5 years to prepare for this, unfortunately. I mean, I wish we had a longer runway. I think for the most part, these are the right decisions. I wish it didn't come from a settlement. I wish we could go back 25 years and find a more elegant solution to get there, but so be it. Here's what we have to do, and we've got to figure out a way to create a new business model in more or less 6-8 months. Your question about eliminating sports, we have no plans to eliminate sports right now. However, I would tell you that they're probably going to look different. And I think some of my colleagues, I know that my colleague at Ohio State made some headlines saying this yesterday, that even at Ohio State, the way in which our sports operate are going to look different, right? And there are going to be some sports that are more participation-based, and there are going to be some sports obviously where the expectations are much higher. And I think what he's alluding to and what I'm telling you is that some of that's going to be based on the scholarship allocation, right? If their goal and our goal is to not add new scholarships and to not add more expense there to maximize the revenue share, your scholarship count's going to come from what currently exists on your rosters. Now they have more sports than us, but you see kind of where this is going. So we have no plans to eliminate any sports here. I love all of our coaches. I think all of them have a great chance to be competitive and successful. I don't want to take away opportunities for those young men and women that are here on campus and those that have committed to this school. So that's kind of my pledge. But I would also say that to preserve those, we need to make sure that football and men's basketball and women's basketball and our revenue generating sports stay strong because those pay the bills. So something's got to give. This model, as we know it, is not sustainable. And so there's going to be a reallocation of resources on this campus and others. And, we've got to be okay with that because that really is our path forward. So a lot of work to do. We've created a leadership committee. Ryan Peck, who's in the audience today, is one of the cornerstones of that. But, we've got our best and brightest thinking about this every single day and how we're going to adapt.
So if you eliminate scholarships in the sports areas, and Roscoe mentioned it, I think you might use the term, would it be a club sport necessarily?
Well, it'll be, no, it would not drop down to club status. I think there's probably some NCAA terminology. It would still be Division I. They would count as part of our 22 roster of sports that I would oversee as athletics director. But the participation in those would look different, right? Is it just, right now, in addition to athletics aid, if you don't receive a full scholarship, you can receive need-based or merit-based aid on campus. And so the focus for those sports could be more of that, more aid based on more aid from campus rather than athletics aid. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if it's club. He said club.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably a loose term. I think some people are kind of throwing around that term. Our club program here at TCU is run by the rec center, and we're not just sending 6 sports over there.
So it would be housed under, theoretically, it would be housed under your
Correct.
title, right? And you just necessarily wouldn't be funding scholarships, but everything else they would play.
Correct.
The schedule would be the same, the salary structure theoretically might be the same.
Yeah, if those decisions need to be made, it would be my responsibility to ensure that those young men and women have a great experience here, right? And
It
so,
wouldn't necessarily be, because the reason I'm asking that kind of question, I was like, the parents out there are thinking, their kids, I'm going to get a scholarship. Was that scholarship athlete position didn't even exist in 5 years?
sure. Well, and I'll tell you that that's not just a TCU issue, right? That's happening all over the country. And so that's the, kind of the irony of this, if you will, is that I always talked about the House case. House was a swimmer in Arizona State. That's the irony of this, right? From a non-revenue sport, right? So that's Grant House. So that's kind of the irony of this, is that I don't think if he were sitting here in this room, this is the outcome he probably imagined when he signed up for this. Again, I'm not throwing jabs at the plaintiff's attorneys, but that's where we're at.
Another piece of this complicated puzzle is the potential of private equity. What are your thoughts on incorporating private equity in college athletics?
Complicated. I would say that I love the idea of running out every ground ball, looking at every opportunity, and we have, in my opinion, the best commissioner in all of sports, and especially in the case where we're in growth mode, like the Big 12 is. So we're looking at, we've looked at it. We've had meetings here on campus. It's not breaking news that the league has looked at opportunities, and I've never done a private equity deal, but I would tell you that they're complicated. The money's not cheap. There's typically an exit strategy. And so all those things are a little unusual in college athletics. So it's kind of the hot item right now is to talk about it. And I'm not saying it won't happen. I just think there's a lot of things that need to be hashed out before then. But, I would say that the future of college athletics, so many pro sports and pro models have had infusions of capital private capital and private equity, so it's not impossible to kind of dream a little bit that day's coming.
On that note, expansion obviously is a continual
Hmm.
topic around this, and the talk around UConn this week has been heavy. What is your thoughts on how aggressive you want to see the conference in growth while also maintaining good revenue sharing from the conference for the member institutions?
Sure. Well, it would be inappropriate to comment on any school that's in another league, but I would say that any situation that adds value, that's additive, especially in football, is going to be something to take a good look at. So, a lot of uncertainty as it relates to other leagues, and I feel very confident. I'd speak for my AD colleagues that Brett Yormark's going to we'll be well positioned when that opportunity comes or those opportunities come. The one thing I always kind of laugh at, and if you would just want to get a fan base riled up, just throw out a little rumor about conference realignment or expansion. That's the fastest way. That and changing a logo or your jerseys is the fastest way to get a fan base riled up, for good or bad. But what I would say is, we as a league, I like our composition. I like the 16 right now. That's not to say it can't change. And I think there's a number of scenarios that, could improve the league. But where I was going with this is that someone's got to pay for it. And if it's not ESPN, Fox, name the network, it's the school, because your shares become diluted. And so anything has got to add value to it. So I always kind of laugh about all these, restructured, and these schools are now in your league. Well, if they don't add value, that means that our take is less. And one of the parts of the house case settlement is the backward-looking damages. Like, we're already down almost $2 million next year before we even jump into the rev share, right? So we've got to find ways to add more value to the conference, and so we got to be very cautious about who we add. Obviously, our television deal comes up in 2031. We'll be renegotiating that in 2030, and so anybody that will come into the league, had better help in that effort.
We'll go two more questions.
Is there any basketball program that can bring the same value as football?
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'll let you all figure that one out. There's some great basketball brands out there. Most basketball programs do not make money on campus. There are, probably 15 or 20 that do. Brian Estridge would probably know. It's not many. It's not many. But I couldn't speak to which ones would add value to a television deal in the future. Yes.
Any irony for you as you get ready to face Stanford? They're now in the ACC. A couple of years ago, when Texas and Oklahoma left, there was talk of TCU and other Big 12 schools trying to go to the Pac-12, and now that conference is going. How this thing at all ended up?
Personally, it's kind of sad. I grew up in the Pac-12, Pac-10 at the time. Footprint. My father worked on the staff at Washington State. I grew up a Coug. I remember being at Stanford Stadium, and it was a pretty cool experience. I worked at the University of Arizona. That was my first kind of big-time job in college athletics. So it's kind of sad to see that go away. But things change. So I don't think any of us would have imagined at the time when the Big 12, when Texas announced they were leaving, and we felt like the Big 12 was imploding. You saw all the headlines. We would have welcomed an opportunity to go to the Pac-12, right? But I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we stayed here. I'm glad that Commissioner Bowlesby stabilized the conference, and this became what we never wanted to leave. We always wanted to be proud members of the Big 12, and so I'm glad that it worked out. I do hate the Pac-12, and of course, Washington State finds himself in a tough spot. That pains me. I grew up in Pullman. There are good people there. The town's going to look different, when you don't have USC and Washington coming in every. I shouldn't say that. I don't quite know what the plans of the Apple Cup are, but you get my point. It's just a different environment, and so, but. If there's anything that we can bank on, it's that change is coming, and so there's probably more coming. So back to Melissa's question, just about conference realignment. There's more coming, and it could come soon. It could come in a couple of years, but there's more coming, and so we'll be ready for it.
Here, Mike, can I ask you to go back to the Sunny?
Last question.
if you think back to when they approached you and what was your reaction and how did that, what was that first conversation?
Well, I'll tell you, so I'm a development guy by trade, right? And I've never solicited a gift from a coach. And I certainly didn't do it this time. But I remember talking with Kate Dykes, who's just so thoughtful, is so thoughtful during this entire process. And I said, look, I mean, Sonny's dad's a legend. He's a coaching legend. And so I was just throwing out some ideas. And I said, would you want to do something? You're a football family. Would you want to do something in honor of Spike or the Dykes name? And she didn't even hesitate. She said, no. She said, this isn't about us. I think if Sonny had his druthers, he would have preferred this to be anonymous. I was helpful, or maybe a little helpful in talking them into announce this because I think it's such a big deal for the community. I think it'll inspire others to give. And so, it's an incredibly selfless act. It's incredibly thoughtful. I remember when I called the chancellor and gave him the news. I mean, he couldn't believe it. He was so excited. So it's just a huge deal for TCU. And I think it speaks to how special this place is. And they've been members of this community. They were here in 2017, but they've only officially been members, for about 2 years. But boy, it feels a lot longer. They've made a significant impact in a short amount of time. And I know they would tell you that our best years are ahead. So it'll be many more years. But no, just really excited about that. It's very rare that you're this. We're all excited to play football Friday, but it's rare that you have this much positive momentum and exciting news on a Tuesday.
Thank you.
So thanks everybody.